And ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to another exciting show with Australian Indian Radio. And today we have lots to talk about. And once again, as I mentioned before, that our live feed at the moment is having few of the challenges, may I say, but we are getting there, as you can see. Well, right now, let's get on with the news for today. First of all, we'll take a look at what's happening here in Queensland, and then we will take a look at the press release which has been done by the... So the Honourable Anastasia Palaszczuk, Minister for Health and Ambulance Services, and this is a joint statement together with the Honourable Yvette Dart, who is the Minister for Health. So the joint statements come today as what's going to be happening right here in Queensland. Great news. Restrictions on vaccinated international arrivals ease. So what does that mean and what will it mean? So what it will mean is that fully vaccinated international arrivals will be able to enter Queensland without quarantine from 1 a.m. on Saturday, January 22nd. You heard me right? So from January 22nd, 1 a.m., the measure was identified in Queensland's vaccine plan to reunite families once the state has reached 90% of its eligible population fully vaccinated. So, we've reached the target. Well done, Queensland, and here it is. The Premier said providing a date gives businesses and families certainty. We are very close to hitting 90%, the Premier said. So, even though we haven't exactly hit it, but she wants to give everyone the date. But the exact time is difficult to predict, but providing this date gives businesses and families certainty and time to make their plans. And already we can see on social media and everywhere, a lot of commentaries. Vaccinated international travellers will be required to take a rapid antigen test within 24 hours of arrival. So, and unvaccinated travellers will still be required to complete a 14 days quarantine in a government-nominated facility. So that still will be there. More than 88.8% of eligible Queenslanders are fully vaccinated. The state is expected to reach 90% sometime in the coming week, which is great news. Well done, Queenslanders, on reaching that target. So the second dose rates have slowed in the 18 to 39 years age group. It is presumed this is because of increasing case in the age group. Yes, that could be a deciding factor there as well. And many due to their second vaccinations are presumed to be in isolation as either a positive case or a close contact of their case in their household. So that makes it a little bit more challenging as well. And further on, Health Minister Yvette Dart said contradicting COVID does not affect the time frame for getting a second dose. You can get vaccinated as soon as you recover from your COVID symptoms, the minister said. So, if you have COVID, you can still go and get the second dose, and as soon as your symptoms are over, you can do that. Well, that's the news there from Queensland. This is very, very great news. Now for the next news, we're joined by Honourable Alex Hawke, MP Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. And another good news which is coming our way, and he, together with the Honourable Josh Frydenberg MP, who is the Federal Treasurer, have made this following announcement which will affect seasonal workers, students and working holiday makers here in Australia. So what will it mean for them? It is going to mean that students and working holiday maker visa holders, the Morrison government has announced a series of visa measures to provide an incentive for fully vaccinated students and working holiday maker visa holders to return to Australia as soon as possible. Yes, you have had that right. So they can come to Australia as soon as possible to address current workforce shortages caused by COVID-19. Refunds of visa application charges, working holiday maker visa holders who are currently offshore and come to Australia during the next 12 weeks will be eligible for a refund of their visa application charge. So that's another great incentive for people to come. Any student visa holder who is currently offshore and comes to Australia over the next 8 weeks will be eligible for a refund of their visa application charge. So that's a good news there for seasonal workers and also for the students as well. The current visa application fee for a student is $630, and for a working holiday maker, it is $495. So these charges will also be for new applications which will be processed quickly. So applicants can come to Australia during the refund window. So that is a great news for students and working visa holiday makers. So as well as providing an incentive for existing offshore visa holders to bring forward their travel, these changes will generate new interest in Australia and new visa applications. So this is once again going to be very, very good news for them. The provision for refunds and the priority visa processing, together with the Tourism Australia advertising campaign, will generate fresh interest in Australia and students and holiday makers who contribute greatly to our economy, as we know. And the shortage of that we have already feel. So, they not only contribute to the economy, they fill vital skills gap. So, international students, flexibility of working hours. The Morrison government has supported Australian businesses during the pandemic by allowing students, visa holders to work at like a full-time rate rather than just the 20 hours that they were allowed to do before. So due to the current workforce shortage, the federal government is temporarily extending its arrangement by removing the limit on student visa holders' working hours across all sectors of the economy. So this is a good, very, very good news. This measure takes effect immediately for all ongoing students as well as new student arrivals who start a job prior to their course. So even if they haven't started their course, even if they start working, they can do like a full-time work. And will be reviewed in April 2022. So April is when it will be reviewed. Holiday makers employer flexibility, which is in addition, will be effective and end at the end of 2022. So student visa 1 will be reviewed in April, and this will go to the end of 22. There will be no limit to the length of working holiday makers, and they can work with the same employer. The above measures are temporary. Yes, mark my words, they are temporary and designed to provide immediate assistance to Australian businesses that are currently facing critical workforce shortage, and also to enable them to continue delivering goods and services to the community. So, these are wonderful news. There are currently around 150,000 students and 23,500 working holiday visa maker holders offshore. So these are the numbers offshore. All international arrivals must be fully vaccinated or hold a valid medical exemption. Further details will be available on Department of Home Affairs website. So these are the two important, very, very important releases this morning. The first one from Queensland government, and the second one obviously there from the federal government. And of course, looking at both of these, they are very, very good measures. Right now, let's join our Prime Minister.
The most recent information that we have is that post 5 days, you've still got 30% that are remaining infectious. And so that is a calibrated decision you've got to make. What I'm pleased about is that the measures that we've announced and are already taking are having impact. I mean, the difference between standing before you today and a week ago has been quite significant. I mean, a lot of that is yet to be seen, I understand, on the shelves. But where the challenges were, I mentioned particularly the poultry sector and others, the trucking industry and so on. A lot of those peak pressures that we were seeing, we're seeing some relief for that. It's not back to where we'd want it to be, but the trajectory is right. So we're going to take medical advice on that. And I know the Chief Medical Officer has many sleepless nights over this one because we ask him about it regularly, and he is constantly talking to his colleagues overseas, places Israel, the UK and many other places, to understand what the experience there is. And so if he's in a position to tell me that we can make a change like that, then of course that would be something that we would proceed with. But at the moment that is not the advice, and until we have such advice, then I think it is prudent, because I say we're living with the virus with balanced, sensible rules, restrictions. They're not lockdowns, they're not those things. We've moved past all that. But we are respecting this virus, but we're not fearing it.
And very well said, our Prime Minister there, that, this is something that we're going to be living with. And JP Soni, yes, it is very sad that Omicron is here to break us. Please do wear the mask when going outside, and of course, any other precautions and measures that needs to be taken. Please do observe all the precautionary measures. And as our Scott Morrison is, defending the government's management of Omicron.
A familiar start to the year.
It's been incredibly frustrating. We understand the frustration.
For a Prime Minister facing another summer of discontent.
I can assure you that I understand just how frustrating this summer has been for Australians.
This time it's not secret holidays, bushfires or lockdowns, it's the Omicron surge.
You've seen queues, you've seen rising cases, you've seen pressures on hospital systems, you've seen disruption of supply chains, you've seen shortages of tests.
But it's the shortage of workers causing greatest concern. With so many Australians in isolation, the government's looking overseas for a solution.
My message to them is, come on down.
Enticing more than 170,000 international students and backpackers to come back, promising to refund their visa fees if they arrive within months.
It's a small step, but I think a very welcome step.
Facing the biggest labour shortage in decades, businesses will take all the help they can get. But at the top of their wish list, access to rapid antigen tests.
They need to be widely available and freely available, and I think that's the number one request.
Business groups joining Labor and the unions in calling for free rats and more of them, criticising the government's failure to secure supplies.
A lot of these comments are made with hindsight, not foresight.
And a lot of comments are made in ignorance. Rogue Queensland backbencher George Christensen's at it again, warning parents not to vaccinate their kids.
George Christensen is a menace to public health, a danger to the public health of our children no less.
This time, he went too far, forced to step down from a lucrative parliamentary role worth an extra $23,000 a year.
I think they're unwise views. I think they're dangerous views. I don't think parents should be listening to them.
The Prime Minister's acknowledgement of the frustration voters are feeling gives some clues about his strategy. He's clearly in no hurry to call the election, meaning a May poll seems all but certain. Scott Morrison will be hoping by then, this summer is a distant memory. Jane Norman.
And of course, we hope so too, that this summer is a distant memory. But of course, there have been big things that have been done, and it has been frustrating also on everyone, especially during this summer.
I just want to start by being very upfront with Australians that I can assure you that I and all the members of my government, and have no doubt all the premiers and chief ministers, understand just how frustrating this summer has been for Australians.
The PM went on to tell us how much the government had been spending on the pandemic, $34.8 billion, and to outline all the ways it has been very busy addressing everything from the health response to skill shortages. But circumstances are producing some measures of success which would sound strange, to say the least, in more normal times.
When it comes to even the large number of more than 350 deaths in the course of the past week, our death rate that relates to Omicron is one of the lowest in the world.
But at least the PM was able to reassure us about some things, saying the government had found a solution to the shortage of the diesel engine fluid, AdBlue.
A private sector outcome, which we've been able to deliver, which has meant the trucks can keep running.
The PM said the priority for him and National Cabinet this week is schools policy. The government is keen, among other things, to ensure schools open to maximise the available workforce. In the meantime, it announced measures in response to workforce shortages designed to encourage the international students and backpackers left stranded without support 2 years ago to fill the gaps.
And there are around 150,000 students who have visas, who we are encouraging to come back, to be there for the start of their university or college year. And that is a thank you to them for coming back and continuing to choose Australia. And there are some 23,500 backpackers who have visas to come to Australia right now. And my message to them is, come on down.
Come on now, and that is the message that the Premier is, the Prime Minister is putting out, and it is an excellent message. Please, we do need, and this is the whole story of Australia. This is how Australia has been built by people coming in here. Even in the very, very early days when new migrants came to Australia, they were given incentives and there were recruitment agencies happening all around the world trying to get people to come and populate Australia. So we are a migrant community based on the migrant community. Never to forget that, but always to appreciate the efforts put in by our predecessors and all the hard work and effort they did in those times to make what it is today. And once again, today the government is faced with that shortage of labour and they're putting in measures to get more people in. And that has been the case throughout the history. So, never forget that, that this is how Australia has been formed. This is the true story of Australia. Right now, let's go to New South Wales.
How would this plan for rapid antigen tests for students and staff in New South Wales work?
Well, we're obviously finalising our plan at the moment and we'll be taking the principles and the operational side of that to National Cabinet today. But ultimately, our focus here in New South Wales is to have students back in the classroom on the first day of school. We see rapid antigen tests playing an important role in that, at least for the short term as we move through this Omicron wave. But there's obviously a range of factors involved as well. It's going to be a difficult and challenging time as we get kids back in the classroom. We had issues last year when we brought students back towards the end of the year, and we had from time to time we had to close schools, but overwhelmingly schools remained open. And as we move through this phase, there'll be challenges with teachers needing to take time off, obviously, and kids as well. But we can't let perfection be the enemy of the good. We're getting all those plans in place to make sure we give comfort to parents and to teachers and to children that will be able to open schools on the first day in a safe environment. Just on the rapid antigen test, though, it's been widely reported that the plan involves around 2 rapid antigen tests per week for students and teachers. Now, doing the maths, that would mean, if you did that for the entirety of the first term, 25 million rapid antigen tests. That's half of what New South Wales has ordered. Is that the plan? And if so, how would that work with the disbursement of other RATs? Well, we haven't made a final decision in relation to the plan. We do see, at least in the short term, surveillance testing providing some role as we get kids back in the classroom. New South Wales, as of this week, has ordered 150 million rapid antigen tests. And
150 million the rapid antigen test. And mark my words, the RAT test, as we know, will very soon be a thing of the past. There will be the technology that people are working on, or at somewhere that will be more a digital way of measuring and the methods, and which will become a very common thing in all venues, schools, airports, public events, churches, places of worship. You will be allowed to go in with that very quick on-the-spot test as well. So, but it's still not out, but, will be a very welcome move once that's developed. Well, right now, looking at the number of people who have received their booster shots, I have.
Australia's vaccine rollout has started the year with a bang. as boosters top 5 million and children aged 5 to 11 join the program. Nationally, more than 1 in 5 people have received a third dose of vaccine. The ACT is in the lead with almost 27% of residents triple vaccinated, while the Northern Territory has the lowest rate with just under 19% boosted. Across Australia, 206,000 third doses are being administered each day, the equivalent of 0.8% of the population. The surge in boosters has driven the national 7-day average to a 3-month high of 284,000 doses a day. In 4 states, Tasmania, South Australia, Western Australia and Queensland, daily vaccination rates have hit all-time highs. Adding to these numbers are more than 750,000 5 to 11-year-olds who have already been vaccinated. This age group has only been eligible for 9 days, but across Australia, more than 16% have already received a first dose, rising to 30% in the ACT and 25% in Tasmania. Vaccine uptake among 5 to 11s in the first week has outpaced those aged 12 to 15, who, until now, had the strongest uptake of any age group. Nationwide, just over 14% of 5 to 11s received a jab in the first week of becoming eligible. This compares to 12% of 12 to 15s. In fact, a higher percentage of 5 to 11s were vaccinated in the first week in every state and territory except New South Wales and Victoria, where distribution problems triggered mass cancellations and delays. With 5 to 11s added to the rollout, just over 94% of Australian residents are now eligible for vaccination. Right now, 82% are vaccinated with at least 1 dose, and 78% have had 2 doses.
So there you are. Our numbers are looking good, and it's getting better every day. So we too need to do our bit so that we can get back on and get back onto the life as it is meant to be. But right now we have to do what we have to do, and the governments are doing whatever they can there as well. Well, right now let's move on, and time to get to our Daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India. In our first story, India revises COVID-19 treatment guidelines, especially for treating senior citizens and those with comorbidities. Also, India's Health Ministry has asked all states and union territories to immediately increase testing in a strategic manner given the trend of case positivity in specific areas. As COVID-19 cases continue to surge in India, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has revised the guidelines for the clinical treatment of mild, moderate and severe COVID-19 patients. The guidelines issued by All India Institute of Medical Sciences, ICMR, COVID-19 National Task Force and Joint Monitoring Group under Union Health Ministry for Management of Adult COVID-19 Patients said that people above 60 years of age, those suffering from cardiovascular disease, hypertension, CAD, diabetes mellitus and other immunocompromised stages like HIV, patients of active tuberculosis, chronic lung, kidney or liver disease, persons with cerebrovascular disease and those suffering from obesity have a higher risk of severe infection or mortality. The latest guidelines do not include the use of antivirals like molnupiravir and monoclonal antibodies in patients to treat the COVID-19 infection. Medicines like ivermectin, favipiravir and doxycycline are also not recommended in the guidelines. Antibiotics and vitamins also don't have any place in India's latest COVID management guidelines. Also, the Indian Union Health Ministry says data shows a decline in COVID-19 testing in several states and union territories. Now states are being asked to increase testing strategically in those areas showing a trend of rising positive cases. All those who are symptomatic must be tested, so also contacts of those who have a laboratory confirmed cases, said Aarti Ahuja, Additional Secretary of Health Ministry. She said identification of new clusters and new hotspots of infection can facilitate immediate action for containment, such as setting up containment zones, contact tracing, quarantining, isolation and follow-up. This can curb the spread of infection. India has sanctioned $500 million in credit line to help Sri Lanka purchase petroleum products as the island nation struggles with a massive fuel and
live
energy
feed,
crisis.
and we'll come back to
the Indian High
India
Commission in
report.
Sri Lanka.
An ongoing need for quarantine for arrivals, including those who are unvaccinated or who come from countries where their vaccination programs include vaccines that aren't recognised by our TGA. The federal government has asked us to retain an international arrivals cap outside of those allowed to arrive without quarantine at 350 a week, which gives you a sense of the kinds of numbers that we might expect beyond Saturday. There are also 262 people currently in hotel isolation. They're people who've been directed into hotel isolation because their accommodation is unsuitable for them to isolate. So that's homeless people, vulnerable people, travellers whose accommodation may no longer be available, whose hotels might have said that they cannot isolate there, and others who might have people in their household who are vulnerable. For example, they might have a disease which means that they are immunocompromised. And so an ongoing need for suitable quarantine and isolation accommodation is certainly the current case. The Queensland Health and the Quarantine Governance Board have carefully analysed these numbers to determine how we should use our new Queensland Regional Accommodation Centre at Wellcamp. This is the first mix. It is how it will be used when opened, but we should expect this to change over time. The first 500 beds, as you know, we will begin to put guests into in February. The facility itself is broken into pods of 250 beds. So the first 500 includes two pods of 250. These pods can be operated individually and for different purposes. And so the decision has been made that on opening, the first pod will be used for those travellers who still need to quarantine, unvaccinated travellers, for example. The second pod will be used for Queenslanders directed into isolation because their accommodation is not suitable. That will allow us to downscale the number of hotels that we need. We will continue to need some hotels in other parts of the state and one close to the airport until the Commonwealth's Pinkenba facility becomes available. As I mentioned, we should expect this mix to change over time as the pandemic response changes. Its utilisation and the utilisation of hotel quarantine has changed over the last 2 years and, as I say, will continue to change. We have a program board responsible for making those decisions about how we use the Wellcamp facility and hotel quarantine, and today we're announcing the appointment of a quarantine commissioner. I'm very pleased to announce that Queensland Fire and Emergency Service Assistant Commissioner Joanne Greenfield has been appointed as the quarantine commissioner to work with the Governance Board to oversee the administration of isolation and quarantine in Queensland. She's here with us today, and there'll be a chance for her to introduce herself and to answer your questions. We're coming to you with the COVID update today from Antiotech. Antiotech is a company with a rapid antigen test approved for use in Europe and the United Kingdom, and we are supporting them to build a manufacturing facility here. Right now they're manufacturing in Spain, and they have capability in Spain to scale up to provide additional tests, and we hope by around the middle of the year a capability to produce roughly 1 million tests every month.
So there was the Premier Stephen Miles speaking there, and of course the announcement of a quarantine commissioner as the new announcement, and of course the announcement of the quarantine facilities. My only comment or my only observation on there is that Of course, we know that Omicron is here and this virus is here to stay. But, building those large-scale quarantine things, looking in the future what the need might be, and of course also the rapid antigen test, which is needed now. If it is in short supply, what is to say that technology will change, and investing so much money into that sector into the future if the money goes into research and development, that's understandable. But anyway, right now, let's move on and let's go and reconnect with our daily India report. Sorry, Himanshu, for the interruption, but the live feed just came through.
$500 million in credit line to help Sri Lanka purchase petroleum products as the island nation struggles with a massive fuel and energy crisis.
The Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka has said that External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has agreed to offer critical support and the $500 million credit line in a letter to Sri Lankan Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris. Sri Lanka is currently facing a severe foreign exchange shortage with falling reserves. This has led to the currency losing value, making imports costly. The country is grappling with the shortage of almost all essentials, including fuel. The state power utilities are unable to run turbines and power cuts are imposed at peak hours.
The island is expected to endure power cuts of up to 4 hours daily.
Meanwhile, the state fuel entity has stopped oil supplies as the electricity board has large unpaid bills. The only refinery was recently shut as it was unable to pay dollars for crude imports. A few days back, the Indian government announced a $1 billion assistance package in addition to other balance of payment support to Sri Lanka. The $1 billion loan credit facility is to be used to avert a food crisis while allowing for import of items and medicines.
The Indian equity benchmark Sensex fell by 660 points on January 18th.
Indian stock markets and those elsewhere in the world were down 18 January amid fears that the US Federal Reserve may aggressively tighten policy and raise interest rates. The 30 scrip Bombay Stock Index Sensex closed at 60,754, down by 660 points. The National Stock Index, the Nifty 50, closed 195 points lower to end at 18,113. Financial stocks lent some support to the headline indices as all major private banks closed in the green. The broader markets also slipped as mid-caps and small-caps slipped over 2%. Among the 50 stocks of Nifty, Axis Bank, Dr. Reddy, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank and the Nestle India led the gains as each scrip rose up to 2%. Leading to losses were Tata Consumer, Maruti, Ultra Cement, Eicher Motors and Tech Mahindra. Globally, Asia Pacific markets lost momentum as major indices declined across the region, erasing morning gains. MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan declined 0.7%. US Treasury yields jumped to their highest point in 2 years, topping 1.83%, indicating investors are preparing for the possibility of aggressive policy tightening by the Federal Reserve.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's Aam Aadmi Party has announced Bhagwant Mann as its chief ministerial candidate for the Punjab state.
Delhi Chief Minister and National Convener of Aam Aadmi Party Arvind Kejriwal announced Bhagwant Mann as the party's chief ministerial candidate for the upcoming Punjab state elections. Kejriwal had on January 13th asked the people of Punjab to suggest names of their preferred chief ministerial candidates and launched a mobile number for the purpose. He said that an overwhelming majority wanted Bhagwant Mann as Chief Minister. Out of the more than 2,100,000 responses received, more than 93% opted for Bhagwant Mann, Kejriwal claimed. Voting for Punjab's 117 assembly seats is scheduled for February 20th and the counting of votes will take place on March 10th.
The virtual Global Youth Conference marking Pravasi Bharatiya Divas 2022 carried the theme Role of Diaspora Youth in AKAM, Innovation and New Technologies. Here is a special presentation by a key panelist, Kalyan Krishnamurthy, CEO of e-commerce company Flipkart.
India has the largest diaspora population in the world, and they can play a very big role in our efforts to become an inclusive, equitable, and prosperous nation. Their understanding of the country they reside in and the ties that they have developed can help identify opportunities for business, technology, and investments. Our country is undergoing transformative socio-economic changes. This is being driven by the efforts of the Government of India under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, different state governments, the public and the private sector. Through our collective commitment, we have improved our global ranking in the ease of doing business as well as on the Global Innovation Index. With India progressing strongly on the path of development, the Indian diaspora can contribute to solving India-specific challenges. This can be done through investments to support initiatives such as Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, and others to propel the desired double-digit growth. In addition, entrepreneurship will be critical to India's sustained growth, and we are fortunate that this aspiration runs deep in every Indian, irrespective of where they live.
Bollywood's Khiladi Akshay Kumar has announced the release date of his highly anticipated film Bachchan Pandey with a poster.
Bollywood actor Akshay Kumar starrer Bachchan Pandey has a new theatrical release date of 18th March 2022. Announcing the release after much delay due to the pandemic, producers unveiled new posters of the upcoming movie. Directed by Farhad Samji, the film will premiere on the festival of Holi. The film also stars Kirti Senon, Jacqueline Fernandez, Arshad Varsi, Pankaj Tripathi and Prateek Babbar in key roles. Akshay announced the news on Twitter with two posters from the film. In one poster, Bollywood's Khiladi star can be seen posing in rugged wear, sporting chains around his neck and a bag loaded with guns and weapons. The other poster features Akshay seated on a truck pointing a gun at the sky along with a group of people. Akshay says the film is a complete package of action, comedy, romance and drama. Sajid Nadiawala's Bachchan Pandey marks the fourth collaboration of Akshay Kumar with Farhad Samji after Entertainment, Houseful 3 and Houseful 4.
The trailer of the upcoming murder mystery, The Great Indian Murder, has been finally released with Richa Chaddha and Prateek Gandhi in the lead. The first trailer of the intriguing murder mystery series, The Great Indian Murder, was released on January 18. Trailer looks promising and is sure to leave fans amazed with the gripping plotline and suspense. The series features Scam 1992 star Prateek Gandhi in the lead along with Richa Chaddha. The Great Indian Murder is based on the novel titled Six Suspects, written by author Vikas Swaroop, whose book Q&A was adapted into Slumdog Millionaire. The show, directed by filmmaker Tigmanshu Dhulia, produced by Ajay Devgan and Preeti Vinay Sinha, will be released on Disney Plus Hotstar. Richa Chaddha will essay the role of investigating officer handling the murder case of Vivek Vicky Rai, son of an influential politician. The video shows Richa and Prateek playing investigating officers to solve the murder of the son of a politician. The best part about the promo is that it doesn't give the plot away, apart from letting you know that the person who died was not necessarily a good individual. Richa Chaddha, who plays DCP Sudha Bhardwaj in the series, said, quote, "Thrillers have always been an exciting genre for me. It challenges you greatly and stretches your capabilities as an actor. When I read the script for The Great Indian Murder, I knew instantly that it was a project I wanted to be part of. There's an intriguing story to tell here, and Tigmanshu Dhulia is a brilliant director who was there for me and for the rest of the cast to guide and direct." End quote. Richa says that each character in the series has an intense motive and justification for their actions. She feels only Tigmanshu Dhulia could have pulled off this exemplary example of a thriller series writing. Apart from Richa Chaddha and Prateek Gandhi, the cast also features Rugbir Yadav, Shashank Arora, Shareeb Hashmi and Ashutosh Rana in pivotal roles. The series will start streaming from February 4th on Disney Plus Hotstar. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Himanshu. And of course, also very special thanks to Kayan Gupta ji, Munish Gupta, and all the team from Delhi. And of course, at this point in time, we'd also like to put on appreciation our Thanks to Jitender also in Delhi. So our team in Delhi always doing wonderful job. Well, right now, moving on, it's time to say goodbye from this segment. So the key points today was, that announcement of the students and working class visa holders to, if you've got those holders holding those visa, you are welcome and welcome back straight away. And of course, your visa fee will be waived as well. And of course, the announcement by Queensland government that international travellers can come in now, quarantine free. Of course, the other safety measures will also need to be put. Internationally, IIP appoints Bhagwant Mann as the chief ministerial candidate in upcoming Punjab elections, and the youth PBD, which has just wrapped up, was good to see that there was such a great connection of the diaspora youth, even though it was virtually under the current circumstances. Can't wait to get the PBDs happening once again, in person. Because even though the messages do come across, but it's just so much better being in person, the touch and feel, and the joy of being there, meeting new friends, and forging those ties. It is just so wonderful. Well, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me from this segment. It's been wonderful having your company, and do apologize for a few of the little technical glitches as they do happen from time to time. But from our part, we try, we strive, and we do the best as we can. But we'd also like to thank you all for joining in. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.